And good morning, everybody. It's morning for a few more seconds anyway. This is the part of the show where I sit here and try to talk a little bit, kill a little bit of time while the clock in the other room starts going bong, 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 and sending me the message. And good morning,
that
everybody.
It's morning for a few more.
And when the clock stops doing the bing bong in the other room, I can click the button, get rid of this graphic, and say, hey, y'all, how you doing? Happy Sunday. Hope everybody's doing well. I know the folks here on the east coast of the U.S. are dealing with some extra sand and dust and stuff coming over from the Sahara Desert. It happens every year, but this year it's particularly nasty. So there's not a whole heck of a lot we can do about that. I tell you, this year, I don't know. I think the less said, the better. It's I just keep waiting for Godzilla to show up. That's about the only thing that could be worse. I mean, think of all the stuff that we've gone through. But oh well, we're going to try to put that out of our brains and say, thank you very much for joining me on part of your Sunday. Thanks for taking time out of your day to come in and say howdy, y'all. Let's go down the list here and see who is popping in. We have, Ice Cream 62 checking in from Italy. How are you doing? It's 9 o'clock at night there. Wow. I mean, I don't know. It really is a thrill for me. I'm of that age that I can remember none of this stuff, even was a figment of someone's imagination till like the mid 60s when the Jetsons came along, and they didn't have telephones. They just sat in front of a computer monitor and talked back and forth, and that's what I'm doing now. So it's just freaky to me that I can actually speak in real time with someone in Italy that I don't know, really. So, okay, Javi's Woodshop down in, I don't know if you're in South Florida or Central Florida right now. Javi's checking in. Thank you for joining me. Dale Francis out in Utah, just to the east of me here. Dave Krause. Steve Late over in the UK. Kevin Els from South Africa. Man, truly international. This is something. Dave Matthews checked in today. Glad to see you here. Bart Bixel. Bart came down and visited my shop last week. Had some V carving that he wanted done, and got to meet up with Bart and spend some time. He brought donuts, so he had my undivided attention. He got to see my sorry excuse for a shop. More on that a little bit later on. Let's see, Ayal Peleg checking in from Israel. Ray Jones down in Texas. Mike Gallo. Wendell Holland in the dust cloud in North Carolina. Let's see, Mike Gallo checking in from Tennessee. I already mentioned you there. Aaron Hansen, how you doing? Let's see, Dwayne Ruthig. Filippo, I am not going to attempt to pronounce your last name because I will butcher it, and none of us want that. Michael McCrite, how you doing today? John Gott from Sheffield. Let's see, Grant from Ottawa. How you doing, Grant? Let's see, Jason Pulliam and Jim Pell. Oh, Filippo is in Florence, Italy. Great, nice. Let's see, B. Trechtel. Fred Martinez from Florida, Jim Hester, Charles Wallace, Rob Sandstrom from down in Temecula, California, and Michael Bill and Big D Dave Clemens in Michigan. How are you doing? Okay, before we get started today, I want to give a huge shout out to a good friend of mine, Mr. Steve Nealon. You folks know him from Harneal Media. You've heard me mention him time and time again here on the channel. He sponsors Mark Lindsay CNC.com. And he's under the weather. Steve had a massive heart attack Monday evening, and is not doing too well. He's much better now, obviously, but Steve is getting ready to have major open heart surgery. We're talking about a triple bypass. Now, I don't do this kind of thing often, so when I do, it is well worth it to me. Steve and his wife, Pam, are very good friends, and these two are very special to me. So I've put a link down in the description to a GoFundMe that was started by another friend of mine, David Jones from Portal Woodworks. And if you would like to contribute to the cause for a very, very decent human being and her husband, I would appreciate if you have $1 or $2 to spare, you click that link and do what you can. They put 2 stents in him that night. When they got him in the ambulance, he was blue. He had 100% blockage on the left side of his heart and 80% on the right. They had absolutely no idea how the man was still alive. They put in 2 stents. He's feeling 1,000% better, but it's still enough to where he's got to have open heart surgery. So, if you can help out, great. If not, good vibes, prayers, well wishes are always appreciated. And Steve, you got a bunch of people out here pulling for you, and your wife Pam, and we'll help you get through this, man. And hope you're well on the road to recovery, and going to put this behind you. So that was all I wanted to say about that. Now let's get into talking a little bit about today's video. It was a little bit different for me, and it was kind of a experiment to see what y'all thought. Just picking questions out of the YouTube comment section and out of a lot of the CNC Facebook groups that I'm a member of over on Facebook, and kind of trying to answer them and show a technique or a method of answering the question, because a lot of times you can't put certain things into text. It's just real quick. It's real easy to show, but it's hard to describe in text. And I wanted to get some feedback on what you think. I'm thinking about making this a regular thing, say maybe once, maybe twice a month, and just pull your questions directly out of either the YouTube comments or the Facebook posts, or possibly an email message I get, and just going through the whole thing, because I find that I'm answering the same questions, and it's not a problem to answer the same questions, but if I can make a video and then put a time code in the description to where you can just click on, okay, I want to know about moving an object to a specific location. You can just click that time code and go to that section of the video. So if you think that's something that's worthwhile, I'll keep doing it. But if it's not worthwhile, then I won't waste your time with it. So let's see. Let's go up here. We did have a question. So basically what I'm getting at with that is I would like your input. If you have some input, if that's something that you think I should keep doing, then let me know, please, and I will keep doing it. Okay, let's see. Jason Pulliam wants to know, do I have any videos about first-time setup on a K40 CO2 laser? No, I do not, Jason, and I don't see any happening anytime soon, mainly because of my experience with the K40 laser was not a good one, not because of the laser itself, but because it was so freight damaged, I could not get the thing to align. and it was returned to the seller. And when they got it, they wondered how I even got it to fire. It was that bad. So they not so cheerfully refunded my money, and I decided just to chalk this one up to experience. I had just enough experience with the K40 to know that it is way too small for what I want to do. So the main thing that I got out of that was I loved the laser. I loved its capabilities, and I loved its speed. The CO2 laser is so much faster and so much more versatile than the diode laser that I know that's the way I would prefer to go. I don't know that I would go to a diode laser. That's just for me. I'm not saying the diode lasers are bad. They're not. There's some people that do some fantastic work with them. It's just not for me. So I think if I were to pick up the laser again, it would be a CO2 laser, but a much larger size. Possibly a home-built unit. We'll see. I don't know yet. But the short answer, no, I don't have a video on setting up a K40. But there are tons of channels out there that do. I don't have any names for you off the top of my head, but if you look for K40 setup on YouTube, you're sure to find them. So, let's see. Dylan's Woodworks checking in. I am doing fine, Dylan. Hope you're doing well. I know you're kicking butt back there on your sawmill and your firewood business and everything, and I hope it's going well for you. So, let's see. Edward Snow has a question here regarding the database. How can I find out which database Aspire is using? Someone has changed the names of the database, and I have no idea which one is the program using. Okay, well, I'll tell you what you can do, Ed. You can, let me bring up Aspire and then do a screen share here. I don't need my 3D view. You can go, you have to have a file loaded out here to be able to get into your tool database. So you go to tool paths, then down to the tool database. Then there is a way to export your entire database. And basically you just click on that export button, and then you name it whatever you want to name it. And that is going to be the database that you would use. Does that make sense? You export the database, then, okay, excuse me, I made a mistake there. You would give it a name like current database and the date, for example. Export that, save it, then go back to that folder, and that's the database that you would import. I'm going to cancel this because I don't want to do this. You would import that database, and that is the database you are currently using, if that was your question. Now, when I clicked that button, it showed that this is the program data, the application data folder, and my database folder. There are only 2 database files here. I know I'm not using the Laser Tools database. So this is the database that I am using right now, currently. So if you just wanted to find which database you're using, just click on that export button. It will go into your database file and look to see which one you have that you're using. You can also take a look at the date modified. If you know about when you last added a tool or removed a tool, it will save the date this file was modified. That's the database you're currently using. So, one of those methods would be a way for you to figure out which database you're using now. So, also, Something else to think about is backing up your database. This is something that is important to do. I have a thumb drive here that is nothing but my Mach 3 setup, so that if I have a problem with Mach 3 out on the other computer in the shop, I can load Mach 3 straight from this thumb drive. It's got my XML file. It's got everything. I can put a copy of Mach 3 on any computer and run it. I also have a copy of my tool database. And every time I add a tool to the database, I export that database onto that thumb drive. So I have a current copy. If I ever lose my database, if this hard drive goes down for some reason, I can go online and download Aspire again. Then I can import that database and I have all my tools back. So a backup is always a good thing to have, especially if you're using an older computer like mine. So, well, actually, this one is not all that old. This one is a fairly new computer. But let's see. I hope that answers your question, Ed. I really do. So, Dave Gatton in the house. Howdy do. Man, I'm so behind. I'm ahead for next week. So, let's see. Damian Thompson checking in from Jamaica. Holy cow. Welcome aboard. Let's see. Luis Sanchez says, what is the best and easy way to make from photo to wood in CNC? I have not gotten into that yet. It is on my list. I just haven't gotten there yet. I'm getting ready to start doing a few inlays, but I've not yet gotten to photo on wood. I've had Photo V-Carve program for 3 years now, and I've never even started it up because I just can't seem to get to that point. I've got so many other projects going on, so many other things happening that it just, I'm, like I say, I don't know if I'm behind for this year or ahead for next year. So let's see here. So basically, Luis, I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you. There are a ton of good Facebook groups out there. I would check out, let's see, probably CNC Tips, Tricks, and Project Finishing. That's the name of the group. And there are people there of all different skill levels. And I know there are people over there who have been carving photos into wood. I know that they're there for sure. I would post your questions over there. Personally, if I ever get around to it, I plan on using Photo V-Carve. Not the Photo V-Carve toolpath in V-Carve and Aspire, but the separate program Photo V-Carve, mainly because I have it. And like I say, I've had it for a few years. So, see, are there any other questions? While we're waiting for other questions, I don't know if you folks have been watching, especially those of you who are on Facebook, but Vectric Limited has been posting some teaser videos about the new upgrades that are coming out in version 10.5 of the software. And one of them really, really has me excited. And that is they are finally adding a thread milling toolpath in version 10.5. And I cannot wait because there are a couple of projects that I've wanted to do for a while now that would need thread milling. I'd love to be able to cut internal and external threads on the CNC. Well, they're developing a toolpath, or they have developed a toolpath specifically for that. So I can't wait. Okay, let's see. Damian Thompson wants to know, is there a search for end mills in V-Carve? If you mean search the database for a specific end mill, I don't know that there is. Let's go over and take a look in the database here. And I don't think that there is a search function. Basically, if you put your tools in the correct category and in order, you shouldn't need to search. I know that's easy for me to say because I'm not the one that's going to be jumping back and forth looking for stuff. But you can move all of these around and organize them. But, I mean, it's very easy. See, I've got one. I notice that I've got one here that is out of order. I got my 1/8" tapered ball nose here, my 1/16" tapered ball nose. You just click, drag it, and, well, that didn't reorder it. Let me go up here, drop it up here. There we go. Now we're in order. I've got my... I've got two 1/16" tapered ball noses because they're two different bits. Okay. One of them must be a mana and the other one must be white side. Basically just go through and organize. And but I don't think there is a search function in here. I've never seen one because, let's see, add a tool, add a group, copy a tool or group, import and export, then remove. No, there is no search function. So, sorry. I don't know that I would ever use a search function. So, let's see. Vectric says, I'm having trouble with my V carving. It seems to show up bloated, distorted, etc. I don't know what you mean by that. Is it bloated and distorted? Are you... Okay. Are you setting your Z0 to the surface of the material? And are you using a start depth? When you're V-carving, I know a lot of folks prefer to set their Z0 from the machine bed. But when you're V-carving, the thickness of the material is less important than the distance the bit is carving down into the material. So set the Z0 to the surface of the material and don't use a start depth. Just let it cut to whatever depth it needs to cut. Because it sounds to me like the bit is cutting too deep. Also, check to make sure that you've got the correct bit selected. A lot of times we think that we have a tool path that's made for a 90-degree V-bit and we're using a 60-degree. Or we think we're using a 60-degree and we've selected a 90-degree. Just make sure you have the correct bit. You're zeroing from the surface of the material. And also that the material is flat on that top surface. If it's not, if it's got a lot of variations like a rough sawn or something like that, there's not really much you can do with that. You'll have to surface the material first to make sure it's nice and smooth. So, let's see. Woody Wan, Jeff from Connecticut. Vectric has a pretty good video explaining Photo V-Carve, my next project to play with. Well, do by all means share any knowledge that you gain from that, because I really, really want to get into it. I just haven't gotten there yet. So, let's see. Wendell Holland says, our club uses a makerspace version of VCarve. We have 9 or 10 different users. Tool database can be a problem if someone changes a default tool. Oh, I can only imagine. trying to get everyone to create their own tools with special naming conventions to identify their individual tools. Is it possible to lock part of the tool database so the individual users cannot change them? That would be a good question for Vectric support. I would email them because I don't know of any way of locking that database so individual users can't change tools. But that sounds to me like the head honcho of the makerspace needs to email Vectric support and see, is there a way that you can lock out changes? I mean, if somebody goes in using the... Okay, let me go back over here to Aspire again here. And let's just, for grins and giggles, say I'm going to V-carve that star. If you select a bit here, you're fine. If somebody wants to make a change in the criteria, if you use edit, it changes that criteria for this toolpath only. If they want to run a little faster, run a little slower, or change the pass depth or what have you. So maybe get people to leave this alone and just use the edit function to change criteria. But of course, getting people to do it is another thing entirely. You can make all the suggestions in the world. That sounds like something that would be a good idea to email Vectric support about and see if maybe that's something that they could add. Because I do know that they take customer suggestions seriously. And especially on a makerspace version of something like that, that may be something that they want to incorporate, to where if somebody wants to go change the criteria, it asks for a password or something. That would seem to me to be something that, Michael McCrite has an excellent point here as well. Each user could save their own tool database version and load when they're using vCarve. Yeah. Bart Bixel also has a suggestion. Use the Windows system security to make the tool DB file read-only. You want some control. You want to be able... You want each user to be able to get in and change speeds or feeds if they're using a different material. But, or like if you're using Maple, you're going to have a different feed and speed rate than you are with Pine or, heck, even something like Sapele or Mahogany. So you want to have a little bit of control. But I mean, as far as getting in and changing a bit, yeah, that's, I would, I mean, the mechanism may already be there. There may already be something in the options that they can add on the Makerspace version. But, yeah, I can see how that would be a major problem. And I'm glad I don't have it. So, Malcolm Temporal says, greetings from Cyprus. Holy cow. Wow. From Cyprus. Man. Okay, let's see. We have, okay, Beach Rectel says yes, he's zeroing to surface. The font on the layout looks good, but on the wood, yeah, well, again, you need to make sure that the surface of that material is nice and smooth. I mean, I know folks who will clamp down the material they're going to use, mount it whichever way they use it, then they'll surface it. Then go ahead and reset their Z0 to the top of that freshly surfaced material, then V-carve. So, I mean, there's something going on there. There is something that is causing that bit to plunge a little deeper than it should, from the sounds of it. I mean, I take it you're not getting squared corners when you're supposed to have squared corners. Something else you can do, I'll put a link to it in the description box. Peter Pasuelo over on his channel CNC Nuts has a video about checking the angle of your V-bits. So I'll wrote down that note to myself to go find that video and put a link to it down in the description box of this video. And in that, when you say you're buying a 90-degree V-bit, that's a nominal dimension, that 90 degrees. It may be 89, it may be 91. And that can cause a little bit of distortion in your carving as well, mainly in the corners. The corners are not exactly square. They're kind of diamond shaped. So he provides a tool path for 60 degree and for 90 degree that you can calculate in your using your post processor and take outside and run on your machine. And I did it, and I found out one of my 90-degree V-bits is actually 87 degrees. So I changed the criteria for that bit to 87 degrees. And the other one was 90 degrees, so I was okay there. So that's something you might want to check into. Check the angle of the bit. So let's see. Bump says, I am importing a badge that I want to nest to make many copies. Is there any way that the individual parts can be split up for tooling? Split up in what way? Are you talking about slicing? Or are you talking about taking individual components out of this and cutting them separately? I don't quite understand. And to be honest with you, I don't nest parts. I mean, I very rarely cut anything out that uses more than one part. So let's see. Michael Bell says, in the database, there is a machine profile that could be used for individual users, but the user would have to remember to go to their personal profile when they design a project. Good point. And I don't know if they have any way of password protecting it. So if I logged in and tried to use your tool database, it would lock me out. I wouldn't be able to use it or not. It's a good point. I hadn't thought of that, Michael. Thank you for that. So, okay, do we have any other questions? As we're waiting for them to come in, I've been talking about it for about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. And yesterday, I officially broke ground on the site prep for the new shop shed, which is a big thing for me. I've made it no secret that I am basically working out of an 8x12 garden shed. The only thing it has going for it is it has a concrete floor and electric service. One single 15 amp circuit. And broke ground getting ready to do the site prep. I got a lot of dirt moving to do, and a lot of leveling and a bunch of gravel to haul in. I am not building the shed. I am getting too old to do that kind of stuff. I am buying a tough shed. It's going to be 12 foot by 16 foot, which is double what I have now. And I'll be running electric out to it and moving the CNC into that shed. And hopefully adding a couple of more tools to it. Then within the next 3-4 years, getting a second one. And that's going to be normal wood shop. So I'll have a CNC shop and a normal wood shop. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because the county that I live in has made it darn near impossible to get a building permit to build a garage on my piece of property, mainly because of setback. I have to stay 6 feet away from the property line on one side and 10 feet away from the property line on another side. Well, by going the portable shed route, with the building being less than 10 feet tall, I'm exempt from those setback laws, so I don't have to stay that far away. That's the only way I can get this built. So by staying under 200 square feet and under 10 feet tall, I can put my shop anywhere on my property that I want to, and that's what I'm going to do. So I don't know if this is interesting to anybody at all. It's a major interest to me, but I'm thinking seriously about starting a side series on taking an empty shed and converting it into a CNC workshop. So if that's something that you would be interested in, let me know. I wouldn't be able to do every step of the way because I am going to be hiring out subcontractors to hook up electricity and what have you. They may or may not want to be filmed doing this and then put on YouTube. So it may be a here's this week's progress kind of a thing. But I'm finally going to be able to get the CNC out of that itty bitty place and into some place where I can get all the way around it. So, and I can't wait. Okay, Bumps kind of qualified his statement. He wants to take out individual vectors to tool. Let me go ahead and dig around in that and see if I can get a simple answer to a complex question. And if I can, I will do a segment like the video today. And maybe I'll do a segment on that. You can take, I'm assuming this is not 3D. I'm assuming that what you mean is you're trying to take individual vectors and somehow machine them in certain steps. Is that correct? So, Luis Sanchez, is it possible to make any Vectric program a toolpath for aluminum or steel? It's certainly possible. However, let me give you a fair warning on that. If you're using a CNC router for steel, you might want to look into a mill. CNC router will cut aluminum, but if you're dedicating to metals, you might want to look into a CNC mill rather than a CNC router, or even possibly a CNC plasma cutter for sheet steel. Now, yes, you can use the Vectric programs. I mean, it's all the same, be it a profile cutout or a pocket or a drilling operation. I don't foresee anybody trying to V-carve in steel. So, that may or may not work. I wouldn't do it. But if you're just looking into cutting out shapes, just a standard profile toolpath will do it. You'll have to get a use a post processor that will work with your control software and adjust your feeds and speeds accordingly. And what I mean by that is do not look at any of the feeds and speeds we are using on wood, because if you do, you are asking for trouble. But I'm sure you know that. So, let's see. We got here. Yes, it is 3D, and yes, I am correct. Okay, that's going to be a little bit different. You might want to, Bumps, go over to the Vectric support forum and post your question over there. You have guys over there that are wizards with this software. And if you can post some screen captures of what you're trying to do, screenshots, you will get more than enough answers. You have folks like Michael Tyler, who designs all of Vectric's free project files. You have guys like Michael Turner. They are just absolute wizards at this software. And if one of them can't help you, it can't be done. That's just the way it is. So, but that may be a little bit above my pay grade as far as my experience is concerned. I don't really do any nesting. And I don't do a lot of 3D carving, which is why most of my 3D videos deal with the clip art that comes with the software, because I don't do a lot of 3D carving. It's very, very difficult to make a profit from 3D carvings unless you have a machine that's capable of knocking them out quick. So, when you've got 16 hours into a carve, how do you charge for that? Folks aren't willing to pay you a shop rate of $125 an hour on something like that. It's just not happening. So I don't do a lot of 3D carving. So, okay, let's see. B. Treckle says, I'm busy building out my basement for a CNC workshop. My condolences. So sound insulation, layout, etc. Yes to the new series. The reason I say my condolences is because a basement workshop, I don't know if you've had basement workshops before, but dust migrates. So the first thing to get in there is dust collection, and make sure it's more than you need, because the fine dust in the air will migrate upstairs and you will have problems. You may not have a problem, but others in the household will. It's not fun. I'm here to tell you. But, sound insulation and sound deadening, a lot of people will go for a spindle because it is quieter. And it is, don't get me wrong, but the minute that bit touches the wood, it's about the same amount of noise. The only thing you won't have is you won't have the whine of a router motor. But sound deadening, there are specialized products for that. I'm not going to be getting into sound insulation. I will be insulating the shed for sure, because I want heat and AC out there. I mean, our temperature extremes here are from the below 0 Fahrenheit to over 110 Fahrenheit. And I want to be able to use this shop 12 months out of a year. So I will have heat and AC, but that's going to be heat and AC type insulation. It's not going to be sound deadening. So I don't know if I can help you there, but hey, I'll give it a shot. It'll be a side series. It won't replace the tutorials, and it'll just be, short, this is the progress I made this week videos. So, okay, good grief. We've been on here almost 45 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and call this good. We'll call it a day. Good grief. Again, if you're interested, if you'd like, there's a link down in the description of this video already for a GoFundMe to help Steve Nealon kind of defray some of these costs that are just completely outrageous, and help his wife pay the bills while he is no longer producing an income. So that link is down in the description of this video. I will get the link to Peter Posuelo's video on how to check your V-bits to see what angle they're actually cutting. And next week, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. Now I'm not even going to mention some of the things that I'm thinking about doing. Right now, I got to head over to my cousin's house and work on her weed eater. So this is me, I guess, saying bye, y'all. Thank you for spending part of your Sunday with me, and y'all take care.